In Korea, food is more than just sustenance. It's a celebration of culture and heritage. At the heart of many beloved Korean dishes lies a simple yet essential ingredient, pork bone broth. This flavorful broth, simmered for hours, forms the backbone of countless stews, soups, and sauces. Pork bones, often overlooked in Western cooking, are prized in Korean cuisine for their ability to impart a rich, savory taste and a silky texture to broths. Generations of Korean grandmothers have passed down their cherished broth recipes, ensuring that this culinary legacy continues to warm hearts and stomachs alike. Whether enjoyed as a soothing soup on a cold winter day or as the base for a hearty stew, pork bone broth is an indispensable part of the Korean culinary experience. It's a true testament to the belief that the most flavorful dishes often start with the simplest of ingredients, given time and care to reach their full potential. Creating a flavorful pork bone broth begins with selecting the right ingredients. Start with fresh pork neck bones, prized for their high gelatin content, which lends a wonderful richness and body to the broth. Look for bones with a good amount of meat still attached for added flavor. Thoroughly rinse the bones under cold water, removing any impurities or bone fragments. While the bones are the star of the show, a few aromatics enhance their natural flavors. A large onion, quartered, adds a subtle sweetness, while a few cloves of garlic, peeled and lightly smashed, contribute a savory depth. For an extra layer of complexity, include a 3-inch piece of ginger, peeled and sliced. Finally, salt acts as a flavor enhancer, bringing out the inherent savoriness of the broth. Feel free to experiment with optional ingredients like dried kelp, shiitake mushrooms, or dried anchovies to suit your taste preferences. Transforming these humble ingredients into a pot of liquid gold is a straightforward process that rewards patience and attention to detail. Begin by blanching the pork bones to remove any impurities that could cloud the broth. Place the rinsed bones in a large stock pot, cover them with cold water, and bring to a boil over high heat. As the water heats, a grayish foam will rise to the surface. Skim off the foam using a ladle or a fine mesh skimmer, discarding it. Once the water comes to a rolling boil, reduce the heat to low, cover the pot, and let the bones simmer for at least 4 hours, or even longer for a richer, more intense flavor. During the last 30 minutes of simmering, add the onion, garlic, ginger, and any optional ingredients like dried kelp, shiitake mushrooms, or anchovies. These aromatics will infuse the broth with their unique flavors, creating a symphony of savory goodness. Once the broth has finished simmering, carefully strain it through a fine mesh sieve lined with cheesecloth. Let the broth cool slightly before storing it. The magic of pork bone broth lies in its versatility. This culinary chameleon effortlessly transforms into the base for countless Korean dishes, infusing them with its rich, savory depth. One of the most beloved uses for pork bone broth is in kimchi jjigae, a spicy and flavorful kimchi stew. The broth's richness balances the tanginess of the kimchi, creating a harmonious blend of flavors. Gamjatang, a spicy pork bone stew, showcases the broth's full potential. The meaty pork bones, simmered until fall off the bone tender, release their savory juices into the broth, resulting in a dish that's both hearty and flavorful. It serves as a flavorful base for soups like sundubu jjigae, a soft tofu stew, and doenjang jjigae, a fermented soybean paste stew. Noodles too benefit from the addition of pork bone broth, adding a savory depth to dishes like janchi-guksu and kalguksu. The broth's richness also enhances the flavors of sauces and marinades, adding a layer of complexity that's hard to replicate. Once you've created a batch of this liquid gold, proper storage is key to preserving its freshness and flavor. Allow the broth to cool completely before transferring it to airtight containers. Leave some space at the top of the container, as the broth will expand as it freezes. For short-term storage, refrigerate the broth for up to 5 days. To extend its shelf life, freeze the broth for up to 3 months. Portioning the broth into smaller containers before freezing makes it convenient to thaw only what you need, minimizing waste. Clearly label the containers with the date to keep track of freshness. With proper storage, you can enjoy the fruits of your labor for weeks to come, adding a touch of homemade goodness to your Korean culinary creations. Making your own pork bone broth is a labor of love, but the rewards are well worth the effort. The difference in flavor between homemade broth and store-bought versions is truly remarkable. Homemade broth possesses a depth, richness, and complexity that's simply unmatched. Knowing exactly what ingredients go into your broth gives you peace of mind, especially if you have dietary restrictions or preferences. You can control the salt content, avoid preservatives, and ensure that only the freshest, highest quality ingredients are used. Furthermore, making your own broth is a budget-friendly alternative to store-bought options. Pork bones are often inexpensive, and the other ingredients are pantry staples, making this a cost-effective way to add a touch of homemade goodness to your meals. So, embrace the tradition of Korean cooking and embark on the rewarding journey of making your own pork bone broth. Your taste buds will thank you.